History is written by survivors who prefer the comfort of metaphors. They speak of the will of fire, a burning spiritual torch passed from heart to heart. It's a poetic narrative, but the archive suggests a colder, more mechanical reality. The Shinobi world views the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, as a god of shinobi, a man who could command the very earth to rise and reshape the map. But look at the data points that follow him. Hashirama married Mito Uzumaki, a union of the two most powerful biological lineages on the planet. By all laws of destiny, their descendants should have been unstoppable terraformers. Instead, they were left in the dark. Why could the grandfather rewrite the laws of biology while his own blood was restricted to standard medical apps and physical strength? Why did the wood-style script vanish for 10 centuries? Our thesis is simple. In the Otsutsuki framework, family is a social construct. Power is a technical one. To run the high-tier partitions of the architects, being a relative isn't enough. You must be a perfect hardware match to the original source code, and the signal is fading. To the architects, a bloodline is just a broadcast. Every shinobi carries a unique frequency, a rhythmic pulse of chakra dictated by their genetic code. But in a world of 6 billion humans, that broadcast is under constant attack. This is signal decay. Every time a high-integrity lineage interbreeds with the human OS, the original Otsutsuki data stream is forced to share bandwidth with 1,000 years of non-essential genetic noise. Consider the most powerful convergence in history, the Senju-Uzumaki union. On paper, it was a perfect sync. Hashirama was the admin node. He possessed 100% signal integrity for the Asura trace. His hardware was so pure, so perfectly tuned to the original frequency, that the Mokuton script didn't just run, it thrived. He was the broadcast tower. But look at the drift. By the time we reach his granddaughter, Tsunade, the powerhouse combination has hit a wall. Tsunade is a diluted node. She still runs the legacy apps, the high-volume chakra storage of the Uzumaki, and the physical resilience of the Senju. But the specific harmonic frequency required to trigger wood style, it's buried under too much noise. The software is on her drive, the license is in her name, but the signal is too weak to bypass the security protocols of the architects. Why did the descendants of Hamura Otsutsuki exile themselves to a dead rock in space? History calls it a duty of guardianship. The archive calls it a data preservation strategy. The Moon Clan was essentially a genetic clean room. To prevent the data decay we see on Earth, they practiced extreme isolation, no interbreeding, no human OS interference. They were curators of a single high-fidelity frequency, the Hamura trace. To unlock the Tensigen, the system requires a perfect hardware-to-software handshake. You need the hardware, a high-integrity Byakugan, to act as the receiver. And you need Hamura's specific chakra signature to act as the activation key. This is where the Earth-based Hyuga failed. By integrating into the human world, they allowed for a millennium of genetic drift. Their Byakugan remained functional as a sensor, but the signal integrity dropped below the threshold required for a Tensigen handshake. The Hyuga on Earth were a corrupted file. Their hardware was too noisy to boot the Tensigen script on its own. It took Toneri, the last inhabitant of the clean room, to provide the external patch. He didn't just take Hanabi's eyes. He attempted to force a system restore by merging his high-integrity chakra with her purebred hardware. To understand the weight of a millennium, we have to look at the Otsutsuki source nodes. Kaguya was 100% admin root, a being whose physical form was dictated by raw power. Her sons, Hagoromo and Hamura, were high-fidelity hybrids, human in temperament, but still possessing the phylogenetic reflex to manifest the Rinnegan and Tensigen natively. But as the timeline moved to the grandsons, a shift occurred. The alien horns and third eyes vanished. The human OS began to overwrite the physical shell, but the source code didn't disappear. It went dormant. The Sharingan is a high maintenance driver. It survived 1,000 years because it is hard coded into the Uchiha neural network as an emergency protocol. Even with extreme genetic dilution, the Indra genetic trace acts as a binary switch. When the user experiences a specific emotional frequency, the switch flips and the legacy driver boots up. But there is a cost. Without the admin root, the original Indra Asura sync, the hardware is prone to system overheat. This is why the Mangekyo leads to blindness. The human eye is literally burning out trying to run an unoptimized Otsutsuki script. Contrast this with the Byakugan. While the Sharingan is a system update, the Byakugan is a factory installed peripheral. It is incredibly dominant because it is a passive sensor. It doesn't require a system sync to function. It is always on, always reading the coordinate grid. But being passive makes it susceptible to signal-to-noise decay. On Earth, the Hyuga Byakugan became a standard guest tool, powerful for scouting, but disconnected from the Tensigen system files. It took Tonari, a curator of the genetic clean room, to prove that the Byakugan isn't weak. It's just waiting for the correct Otsutsuki frequency to unlock its 100% output. After 1,000 years, the DNA is mechanically human, but informationally alien. The eyes didn't survive because they were stronger traits. They survived because they are the interface. You can dilute the blood, you can change the face, but as long as the Otsutsuki script exists in the DNA, the world is just one system update away from the return of the architects. We have established that dojutsu, like the Sharingan and Byakugan, act as biological hardware, but some lineages don't inherit eyes, they inherit a construction tool. This is the case with the Kaguya clan, the descendants of the ultimate source node herself. The ability known as Shikotsumyaku is a direct, yet deeply corrupted, version of Kaguya's bone data reconstruction protocol. When the clan interbred with humans, the original physical blueprint decayed. Kimimaro possessed the correct phylogenetic reflex to execute the script, but his human hardware was no longer pure enough to support it. The human body cannot handle raw Otsutsuki construction code. It was a 24/7 systemic hardware overheat where his own body's defense protocols attacked the foreign bone structure as a virus. The terminal illness that killed him wasn't bad luck. It was a predictable glitch caused by running a divine construction script on a flawed mortal processor. But the 1,000-year drift can also create a moment of perfect accidental synthesis. We must analyze the Boruto anomaly. Most viewers see Boruto as the lucky son of the 7th Hokage. The archive sees him as a genetic recompile. His genetic makeup is the accidental sum of a millennium of preparation. By combining Naruto, who carries the Ashura trace and the 6-path frequency, with Hinata, who carries the pure Hamura Byakugan trace, the Indra, Ashura, and Hamura streams have simultaneously converged, this union has created a singular hardware handshake. He is the only user on the planet whose DNA can generate the specific frequency required to run the Jogan, the Pure Eye, a dormant legacy partition of the architects that hasn't seen the light of day in 10 centuries. He is a walking, breathing Otsutsuki system restore. The archive now turns to the greatest anomaly in the 1,000-year records, Hashirama Senju. Traditional history relies on the will of fire. The idea that Hashirama and Naruto Uzumaki are identical because they share the soul of Asura. From a forensic standpoint, this is a fallacy. A software license, the soul, is functionally useless without the physical driver. Naruto Uzumaki is an Asura reincarnate, but his hardware was Uzumaki optimized. His DNA expressed high volume storage and rapid healing. He had the right software, but his biological processor lacked the specific instruction set for wood style. The archive classifies Hashirama as a genetic throwback. After 10 centuries of drift, the original Otsutsuki wood-release genes had been moved to junk DNA storage, silenced by time. Hashirama was a biological glitch. A single point mutation in his genome reactivated that ancient dormant partition. It was a 1 in a billion hardware handshake between a reincarnated soul and a resurrected gene. So, why did his granddaughter, Tsunade, fail to inherit it? Epigenetics. Tsunade likely carries the information for wood style on her hard drive, but she lacks the transcription factor, the biological key, to turn that gene on. Her body chose to express standard Senju vitality instead. The Mokutan script was present, but the admin root refused to execute the file. The signal from her diluted DNA simply wasn't pure enough to bypass the security protocols of the architects. Hashirama Senju wasn't a hero because of his heart. He was a hero because for one brief moment in history, the hardware and the software were in perfect sync. To finalize the archive, we must address the noise in the community records. Critics often point to individual effort as a way to bypass the genetic protocol. But when we strip away the sentiment, the data remains consistent. First, the hard work argument. Rock Lee and Mike Guy are frequently cited as proof that genetics are irrelevant. From a forensic standpoint, this is a misunderstanding of the scale. Lee and Guy are running the human OS at its absolute thermal limit. They have optimized the standard hardware to 100% capacity, but optimization is not an upgrade. No amount of training can patch the DNA to manifest a Rinnegan or the Mokutan. You can grind the human processor to its breaking point, but you cannot train your way into a genetic license that you weren't born with. Second, the belief that Uchiha blood is a skeleton key. The data shows this is false. Just as we see in the Senju Uzumaki drift, not every Uchiha can initialize the Sharingan hardware. This is Signal Decay. If the intertrace falls below a specific frequency threshold, the eye hardware simply fails to boot. It isn't a birthright, it's a biometric pass, fail. Then, there's a question of Orochimaru and Danzo. If purity is required, why could they graft power? The archive classifies these as external hardware grafts, not native system updates. Because Danzo lacked the native admin root DNA, he couldn't control the signal. The Mokutan script viewed his body as a foreign environment and attempted to overwrite it. Without the correct compatibility patch, the gift becomes a virus. Finally, the argument that chakra is purely spiritual. In our framework, spiritual, yin, and physical, yang, energy require a biological anchor. Think of it as a wireless signal and a receiver. If the biology, the DNA, is noisy or degraded, the spiritual signal has no medium to travel through. You can have the strongest spirit in history, but if your hardware can't catch the broadcast, you're just screaming into the void. The archive suggests a terrifying conclusion. We have spent centuries worshipping the Ninshu and the legends of heroes, but the data tells a different story. High-tier shinobi are not the masters of their own power. They are simply receivers for an ancient, fading alien broadcast. If power is tied to purity, then the history of the world is a trajectory of decline. Every generation that passes, every union that introduces human OS noise moves us further from the source nodes. We are living in a world of signal decay, where the legendary feats of the past are becoming technically impossible for the hardware of the present, which leads to the ultimate question. What happens when the signal finally dies? What happens when the DNA is so diluted that the admin root can no longer be accessed by any mortal means? Does the system shut down, or does it find a way to force a restart? The archive is still decrypting. We'll see you in the next dossier. Like, comment, and subscribe to be informed of the next analysis.